Just how bad did Miami hammer the Florida Gators? Hi, my name is Brian Smith. I am the Florida football scout, and I'm going to go over something today that I think a lot of people are curious about, although they did get a chance to witness it. But I'm going to break it down for you. Why Florida was absolutely bushwhacked inside the swamp. First off, today we're going to talk about Cam Ward, his patience, his ability to find receivers when, quite frankly, they weren't always open right away. And we're also going to talk about the offensive line. They kicked the bejesus out of the defensive front for Florida. And then finally, the swarming defense. Miami's D deserves as much, if not more credit than anything else collectively. I didn't think they would be able to hammer Florida quite the way they did. But frankly, Florida's offense is not very good, and Miami exposed them. So back to the original. Cam Ward in the quarterback position. It's been a discussion topic for many people, myself included, writing articles, doing podcasts, and just speculating whenever I've been on somebody else's podcast. But here are a couple key stats before we get into like this baseline, how many yards he had, etc. If you want to win football games, you must create explosives. By my definition, and there are different metrics for this, 20 or more yards is an explosive passing play. Some people go with 15, but for whatever the reason, I go with 20. So take it for what it's worth. Going by the game, they had 10 plays of over 20 yards against Florida's defense. Now, part of this, again, offensive line deserves credit. Tight ends, running backs, receivers, they all work together on offense as well. But it's Ward's patience, particularly if a Florida defender was able to penetrate into the backfield, where it really gets interesting. Yeah, he throws some crazy arm angles. He has natural talent. He's a big, strong guy, 6'2", 220 pounds. That's all great. But he's keeping his eyes down the field. You don't always see a quarterback keep his eyes down the field when, quite frankly, the person coming at you is not very friendly. Cam Ward did this. He did this consistently, and he also did it with accuracy when he threw the football. There was a pass that he threw to Restrepo over to the left. A defender's coming off the edge, free, and he drops down and throws sidearm past him with absolute high-end velocity, but it's also very catchable to Restrepo, and it's low defender that's breaking on him to hit him. No chance to get to the football. That's a really rare combination. You hear about guys, oh, he's got crazy arm angles and all that. How often do those passes go more than 5 or 7 yards? You know what I mean? Like it's a check down to the tight end or the running back. But to hit a pass 10 plus yards away from him with that kind of accuracy, that kind of velocity, and a hard charging player is very difficult to do. The third part of this, and this is maybe the most important thing that Cam Ward did, threw the football away or tucked it down and took a few yards away from the Gators because they lost contain. He's been known as a guy that'll run occasionally, but primarily a pocket quarterback that moves. He ran a little bit more, and congrats to Ward for taking those opportunities when they presented themselves. So here are his numbers overall. 26 of 35 on the day against UF, 74%, 385 yards, 3 touchdowns in that one ill-advised pass in the first quarter that he was picked off. Again, 10 of his plays that were passes went for 20 or more yards. That is a really unique stat, though. Above all else, that's the most important thing to note, because now with Miami's running game, and I'll talk about that briefly in a moment, the Hurricanes are in a position to do what they want, to dictate the pace with run and pass. Ward has proven he can make it under duress. Ward has proven he can make it from the pocket. He can throw on the run, inside the pocket, outside the pocket, whatever. He did the entire gauntlet at a high level. Not many teams are going to be able to defend that without just an elite down four, and I truly mean elite, as a pass rushing unit. I'm not sure college football has a team like that this year, that the entire down four, you're like, okay, that guy, he can play in 3rd and 6 at his spot and be in the 90 percentile in college football. I mean, elite players. Miami's going to be really hard to stop. So now let's break down a little bit of the running game with Miami, and then we'll get to the defense. Talking about the ability to run the football is pretty unique for Miami, because in this game, Cam was throwing it so well, you didn't necessarily have to call as many running plays. And even if you did, he's going to have a check with me scenario based on the coverages to throw. But with that being stated, they're very timely. Miami's ability to do well in critical moments, short yardage, red zone, etc., circumvents anything else. They weren't eye-popping numbers, for lack of a better term, with running the ball, but 33 carries, 144 yards, 2 scores. There's your critical factor. They had a long of 24. That was from Ward himself, actually, and 4.4 yards per carry. Florida wanted to stop UM's rushing attack, and I honestly think that was the best plan, because if you give Miami a two-way go, you're in trouble. But Ward was so hot, combined with some pretty good running, they just absolutely gashed Florida consistently. They hit big plays, even if they weren't necessarily in yardage. They got them on third down. They got them into manageable situations with running the football on first down and being effective. They did what they had to. And looking at the first downs in general, Miami had 25 of them. So you're balanced like that, it leads to those numbers. Here's a final point about the rushing attack. They ran the ball when they wanted to for the most part, not because they had to. With Ward throwing the way he did, they could have ran it about 10 times less because he was just red hot and still scored a lot. To that point, they also could have scored over 50. They called off the starters early enough. This game could have got into the 50s. How many teams can do that in the swamp? So hats off to the Miami offense. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, this is pretty interesting too. A couple just generic notes. UF had 261 yards. And I know Mertz got banged up, came out of the game. By all means, that certainly impacts it. But he was under duress and he wasn't very good. Numbers were terrible, in fact. 11 of 20, 91 yards, and a pick. 55% completion. Absolutely terrible. He didn't do anything down the field. He didn't do anything as well. The whole team did. Florida didn't have a pass of 20 yards or more. I was just talking about with Cam. 0 passes of 20 yards or more for the Florida Gators against Miami. Breaking down the film just a little bit ago, I was shocked at how bad it was, but I mean, that's an insane stat. First downs, they had 17. That's okay. Part of that was towards the end, though, picking up a few. Those are garbage time numbers. They also were just 1 of 9 on third downs. You could make an argument that's the most important stat for UM. They've really struggled at times over the last several years, really, in critical third downs, even when they had some NFL players in the secondary. This defense, led by Mishael Powell, really changed that. James Richard, Harris, all the guys in the secondary have reason to believe they've taken that step forward, and they're much better players now. We'll see how it goes moving forward, but this is a great start. When you look at the situation with the yards per play, Miami averaged 7.7. It's an interesting stat. It's not unbelievable, but it's pretty darn good. Florida, 4.8. Oof. That is abysmal. You cannot be at that number in your home stadium. So, again, credit to UM's defense. They also had 3 sacks. The defense overall, looking at the numbers, a couple of notes. Jaden Harris led the team to safety. First-year starter was 7. Not surprising. Mauigoa, the middle linebacker, 4 solos, 6 total tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss. Even had a pass breakup. He's on to a chance to get to the All-American level. I think he's about as good an inside linebacker as there is in college football. Wesley Bissainthe had maybe the best overall game because he was really good in coverage. And he was also really good. I was looking at some Pro Football Focus numbers before I turned on this pod. Bissainthe was really interesting because here are his numbers across the board. This is, again, PFF. 75.4 in coverage. He was only 56.6 in pass rush. So he didn't really get home. It was okay. But tackling's 80.4. Run defense, 66.6. And overall, 74.1. When you have versatile defenders like that in the middle of the field that can be in coverage, can get to the perimeter and slow down a run, whatever, that's so valuable. As an example, Trey Wilson, the explosive receiver, early in the game, they tried to get him around an end around, eaten up, and Bissainthe was one of the players that absolutely got to the point of attack and brought him down. Miami's defense is really, really good. I think they have kind of figured it out as a unit, and they didn't have those mental collapses that just absolutely have killed them since I've been following Miami the last couple of years. it would seem like everything's going good and they would just have a colossal mistake. We saw the one long run. Absolutely. That's unacceptable. Somebody lost contain against Montreal Johnson. He's a very good football player. He takes it to the house for 71 yards. If you take away the 71-yard run, and I know it counts, but their total yards, again, were 261, okay? That means they had 190 yards of offense, 191. And they had a total of 54 plays. So in 53, they would have had 191. That's less than 4 yards per play without Montreal's big run. Miami's run gap fits, their ability to not give up the big play over the top. And really, I think they were the more physical team, which shows they hit more in practice. This is something I complain about with a lot of teams. Miami's ability to do that is why they just overwhelmed Florida's offense. Point of attack was good. They had 3 sacks. 8 tackles for loss. Those are the things you're looking for when you want to win a football game and win it convincingly. So to summarize, this is about as all-around a performance for offense and defense as you're going to get. And don't forget about Borregales. He had a couple field goals. He did miss one, but still they knocked those through. And the special teams in general didn't cause any issues. One could make an argument out of all the major games that were played this weekend that Florida was on the wrong end of a whooping by the team that played the best in a big game, and that's Miami. You could at least make that argument. I didn't watch every game and every minute, and I'm going back through film, but again, the Canes need to be in that discussion. Please like this podcast. Please share. Please rate, review. Going to be doing a lot of different breakdowns, Miami and a whole bunch of different schools, just talking college football, polls, Heisman winners, all kinds of stuff. Thank you again for checking out the Florida Football Scout podcast.